Welcome to LaunchPod, a product management podcast brought to you by LogRocket. Today, our guest is Carolyne Moran, VP of Product Management and UX at OneSpan, a digital identity and anti-fraud solutions company. Carolyne began her career in logistics and product management at Airborne Entertainment, where she managed direct-to-consumer mobile promotions. Carolyne then transitioned to managing mobile apps and UX at Yellow Pages Canada, a digital media and marketing company. Later, she joined eSignLive by VASCO, which was acquired by OneSpan in 2015. On today's episode, Carolyne talks to LogRocket CEO and Head of Product, Matt Arbesfeld, about the importance of collaborating across product and UX teams, why being customer obsessed and incorporating customer feedback is crucial, and the challenges of developing product in a highly regulated industry. So here it is, our conversation with Carolyne Moran.
Carolyne, happy Friday.
Hello, Matt. Happy Friday to you as well.
Awesome. Well, really excited to chat again. Maybe you could start folks off, share your background, what you work on.
I'm Carolyne Moran, VP of Product and UX at OneSpan. We work and focus on digital agreements, which really is about e-signatures and authentication and getting workflow and management in place from the paper world to the digital world.
Awesome. And before that, you were working on essentially the Canadian Yellow Pages app. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've been in product management for over 20 years. Previously joining this technology-driven company, I was at Yellow Pages Canada, responsible for the mobile products and user experience as well. So we were really taking that shift from the book to online. And then my team was responsible for making the ultimate shift to mobile, which was the inevitable experience that people are going to be using, actually walking around. Previous to that, I was in product management to a company called Airborne, which was very different as well. Many people, I'm probably going to date myself saying this, but back in the day of 2005 to 2010, doing wallpapers and ringtones for the major wireless carriers, which used to be $1 billion industry, believe it or not.
One area I'd love to talk about, so you oversee both product management and UX. Have you been doing that your whole career, and just curious about how you see those two disciplines fitting together?
Yeah, so it's not my whole career in product, but I would say probably starting around 2012, the UX team became incorporated with our product management team back at Yellow Pages. And it really was an eye-opener for us because, I think at the time, people were so set and you do this, I do that, then it goes and there's this process flow. But as the teams came together, you started understanding it. And I think mobile was really pivotal for us in that sense, because if you think about it, the mobile applications were all coming out back in the day with swipe here, pull up here. What does this do? So it started engaging us and then trying to say okay, so how do you make the experience easier, simpler, faster for people? And then that's when the two groups started coming together. And then for me, UX and UX UI and even the research behind it just became something that I was very passionate about, because it really is a game changer. I tend to say, sometimes if you're looking at trying to be feature parity with other people, sometimes you may have less features, but a better experience. And that could be the game changer for you as a winning that.
Definitely. I always felt there's a bit of too much of a divide between the two groups. So it makes sense bringing this together. And did you have any background in art or design, or did you just have sort of a natural inclination towards UX?
I would never say that. I love art, but do not put a paintbrush in my hands. There's nothing's going to happen, nor a pencil. Doodler at most. That's as good as I get. No, I think it was about being in mobile such at an early time. And if you remember back in the day when, internet first came out, it was so long and laborious. And then it became a passion to understand and how to see things were evolving. And then it became everything, Web 2.0, using web experiences and just becoming why is this here? Why is that there? And then just taking on my own type of courses. And then within the organizations, they started training us as well. So then that just became something that just showed that, at the end of the day, product management or anybody that's delivering something has to take that into consideration. So to me, to your point, the organizations belong together.
Definitely. Yeah. As you said, you could have all the features in the world, but if they're clunky, hard to use, it's like the tree that fell in the forest. No one sees it.
Exactly.
So what does that look like in practice, say at OneSpan? Do you have separate product managers and designers and they're just paired together? Do you look for people who can do both of those disciplines? How do you structure your team?
Yeah, so we definitely have people that are specialized in UX, and then we have product managers, but they're a tight-knit team. I think there's different roles in product management overall, but I do like to hire teams in a capacity where they're not just technical and they're not just business. They have to have some sort of level of understanding about the user experience. I think in the industry that we're in, because we're trying to simplify workflow management, you can't just rely on one source. And I don't think the UX team they feel the same way. They need feedback. So when you just put people in little corners, I don't believe that's the best way to be successful. So no. So what we do, and I think, it's pretty much standard practice. What we call the product trio is, the UX and the PMs work together, as well as maybe one of their main stakeholders in the R&D organization. And you work together when you're developing things. The concept can come from different groups, but definitely you work together, you understand the requirements, the use cases, the personas that we're trying to build for. Then you might go in your little corner, work a little bit separately. Then you're automatically working back together to describe and walk people through these processes and the thought process behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you look for the product managers who have more design inclinations, or is that something you teach your own product managers to try to get them more UX focused?
I would say, throughout an organization, I don't want everybody to have the same skill set. So that's something that's really important. I do have some people that are more technical. I have some people that are less technical. But at the same time, we do have training programs. But I do like to make sure that they understand the importance. I'm not saying they have to know the UX design principles behind the scene, but I would say that it's important that they care about the experience.
One thing I've seen is product folks, especially maybe those who come from technical backgrounds or more pure business, don't necessarily have that natural UX sense. Do you have any ways you sort of helped them grow, or courses, or any recommendation for product people who want to strengthen their UX skills?
100%. There are so many programs out there, like I will call out, I don't know, I'm not doing an ad for them, but like a Udemy and all these guys, they have so many free courses behind the scenes. But what I like to do with our groups is the UX team does lead some of these initiatives for us. They do product workshops, and we don't invite just product people. It's a cross department effort across the board. So we'll have engineers come, we'll do little workshops on why certain things are important, or, why when a designer hands off the final file and it's in the JIRA requirements and the development of the process, why pixel perfect is important. It's about why we took the time to look at it, what it means for that user experience. But again, we do workshops. We have quarterly meetings as a product group with our counterparts. I can't call it a specific type of program that we train, but we do keep up to date with UX principles that come out there. Product schools and all that always call out a lot of these as well. So, and like I said, with the two programs or two product, organizations being one, we work and collaborate together.
One thing we talked about a few months ago is this obsession with UX. And I think you just mentioned something about pixel perfect.
Yeah.
Sort of how would you describe like what being obsessed means with UX, and what the difference between like good and great looks like for you for UX?
Yeah, I like to say this, and I've said this on many occasions. UX is subjective. We've all used websites. You have an opinion. I have an opinion. Someone else has an opinion on how something should work. But what we've determined internally is, as a group, we need to have product councils, customer councils. We need to make sure that we are obsessed. So it's not just internal, you're validating externally. So it's not only what the competition is doing, but it's what are our clients doing and what are their needs? So it's also taking in that information. Research, we have on our UX team as well, we have research people. So it encompasses UI, UX, and research. You can do all the deep diving you want to do, but unless you're hands-on and talking to people, you can't be UX obsessed. You need to be talking to people. And even looking at different experiences, within our industry, we're e-signatures. I think most of us will know who our biggest competition is out there. For sure, we're on their website. They're most likely on ours. But I encourage people to also look at the Ubers of the world, the Sephora website. Go look at great experiences. How does Amazon get us to do a one-click buy? How do we get people to one-click sign that is so seamless? So not only in your own industry, but go look at what's happening and why some of these top, rated UX sites are important.
Yeah, absolutely. People expect consumer-like experiences even when they're signing a document, and so you don't want to be the SAP of your area.
Yeah.
And so when you think about obsessed, it's really getting a lot of customer feedback about your designs and kind of not just shipping something, but making sure you have validation.
Customer feedback, there's enough information on the internet on who are the top rated websites, why they're there, inclinations of working with other people as well. And I think that's user obsessed too, also comes from the mindset of your own organization. I like to say it's not just product and UX, as I was mentioning. We are everyday users. The engineers are everyday users. I want to get their feedback as well, what they like, what they don't like. Because, sometimes the UX part, the nice and bubbly looking screen in front of you is good, but we also need to understand the technical feasibility behind it. So it's everybody takes a part in it. But again, I do believe you have to be customer obsessed while also being able to come back and be, subjective enough to say what's actually better for the market. So we always have to, there's a fine balance in between them, because once you start working with clients, then you get that notion of, oh, they're going to build me what I want. You got to build something that's market driven. And that's why the most amount of feedback is really key here.
Sometimes you're better off working on a new product area than kind of continuing to iterate. You've reached sort of the best you can do with an area. And that is important. Awesome. Maybe kind of shifting gears a bit. You went from working on more consumer app in the yellow pages to now this highly regulated space. How has that changed the way you think about product? Is it kind of longer iteration cycles or any other changes you've noticed through that transition?
I would say personally at the beginning was kind of like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Because I think the key word you just said there is regulated, right? When you work at Yellow Pages, obviously we had advertisers that we had to adhere to, but we had a lot more flexibility. Nobody was determining what you could and couldn't do. Whereas where you work in a highly regulated industry, especially in the e-signature world, where documents actually have financial value to them, that if something gets spoofed of some sort, somebody could be in really some financial liabilities here. But luckily in this industry, you've got the UEDA, you've got the eSign Act that really dictated. I think because the part that has a lot of regulation behind it is actually the end point of what that digital signature looks like. There's a lot more flexibility in the workflow. And at first you're kind of like, I don't understand how tight we have to be. But eventually once you understand really what we're trying to do to safeguard that signature at the end, and there's hundreds of things that happen way before that signature gets signed. And that's where that flexibility comes in. And we really try to look at how do you improve the paper world today to digital? And sometimes it's not always easy, right? You got to be careful as well. It's like sometimes it's too easy to click on something when it's digital. How do you safeguard that? So, I think I was talking to someone recently where, on our mobile product, we make you click twice on a signature. There's no regulation behind that, but could you imagine I'm just scrolling through the page and I accidentally click, all of a sudden I've signed a document. So there's certain things you put in there, but there's a lot of flexibility. And over the years, when I first started in this industry was around 2014, a lot of our big clients, so, we deal with banking, financial services, and insurance, were so opposed to many things. Where I've seen in the last 10 years, it's been great working with a lot of these clients that are like, how do I make this better? How do I simplify it? And even seeing their legal and their security or their CISO teams being a lot more flexible as long as you're protecting that digital signature at the end.
That brings up so I recently switched from my hardware YubiKey to the passkey on device. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I haven't been doing this for years. It's such a better experience. What's that? Are you starting to adopt more ways to authenticate who the user is and kind of validate better who's actually signing the documents, or what's that look like?
I would say that's probably the one thing in our industry that has been increasing in importance the most across the board when it comes to a signature and authentication. Really, the cyber attacks they're never ending and they just keep growing. With remote workforces, digital transformations, people logging left, right, and center, unsecure networks. Hey, the opportunity for credential theft is ever increasing. And, our goal really as a company is protecting the client and their consumer. Now, in terms of authentication, passwords aren't enough anymore. They're not there. And as you know, we've recently launched a new hardware token and we have some software. I think that it's going to be important in the future. I think even as a consumer, how many websites are we signed up to that I don't even know my passwords? I have to go to password manager. I have to do all this. I log in sometimes to a website and they're like, oh, your password's been compromised. Change it. I don't even know what my original password was. I don't know how to move forward. And I think that it's getting a lot easier. I think for the consumer themselves, if you're not using something on a regular basis, the passkeys might be a little bit difficult because it's a bit of a setup. So if I'm signing a document once a year, once every 2 years, what am I going to do? But if I'm an employee of a large bank and I want to make sure that I'm safeguarding all the content and the work that I'm doing, these hardware tokens and software tokens are perfect for this type of industry without having to do two-factor. Some of our clients are now asking for long passwords that are 20, 30 lines. It gets a little bit crazy in that sense, but I do believe that there's still huge room for this to grow. And I think that's the way to go with, passwordless, one click.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like on the consumer side, there's still some room, I guess, to make the process more seamless for passkeys for them. But yeah, it makes sense why the business would want that for their signers. Are there opportunities for AI impacting e-signatures and digital compliance, or is that more, is it kind of more the crypto passkey stuff, the more interesting?
I really believe AI is going to touch every industry. It's not just and e-signatures is a good one. I think, one of the common questions that I receive from many people is, what's your AI strategy? And I really personally don't think that's the right question. The right question is, what are you trying to solve, right?
Right.
Obviously, in digital agreements, it's a very cumbersome task to set up documents, especially as a new customer, you're onboarding. How do you get doc preparation set up? We've done things in the past, template management, of course, but there's still someone going to set up 150 documents. I think that's where AI will play a big part for us in the digital agreements world. It will be about task automation, removing all those manual pieces behind the scene. I think also, extracting data, pulling in data will be very key in helping the automation. On the other hand, I do think AI will play a huge part in fraud prevention. I think it'll learn with Gen AI how my documents are prepared. If there's something that's not the same across the board, how can it validate signatures? It could actually look at a database of my previous signatures and see if anything is off. I think that that's where it's going to play a really key component, and not just doing AI to do AI.
Right. Yeah. And I think the task automation is a really interesting one, because it's a little less, if you're slightly wrong there, it's not a disaster. But if you could help say, oh, I noticed you did this 5 times, click this button and we can automate that process, that can save a lot of time for folks. So
yeah, 100%. We have clients that sometimes have 100 to 250 different document types. You've got armies of people back there. I mean, when you went from, paper to digital, it's something we call NIGO, not in good order. We were helping save millions of dollars, sending, signed documents back and forth because something was missing. There's still room for some errors in there. But I think, again, to your point, it's the task automation and the simplifying of this processes moving forward that will really help change the game.
Would you say most organizations have adopted digital signatures at this point, or is it still very new? What are you seeing in the market in terms of adoption of products like this?
I would say that a good portion have, but the difference is that it's not every single line of business within an organization. So when you work for these large enterprises, you may have a really big name, but only 1 out of their 50 departments is using it. There's still a lot of room to grow. There's still a lot of legalities behind it and a lot of regulations that a lot of departments are looking at. One of our largest industries is government. The shift that I've seen in government over the last 6-7 years it's impressive to see how much they're opening the doors, because they're starting to see, workforces being able to duplicate and triplicate the amount of time that they're saving in order to do things. So it's ever changing. There's still a lot of opportunity.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing to think there's still big swaths of organizations using paper documents and paper signature when they don't need to. And then, maybe kind of final area I want to cover. You mentioned this word I don't think I've ever heard before, customer primacy.
Mm-hmm.
Would just love to hear what that means to you and how you came up with that. And
so I won't take credit for that. That's actually a comment that came from one of our customers, and then we actually started looking it up. I think it's just about the evolution of working with customers. So you used to have customer led, where the customer would tell you what they want, you walk away, and then you do it. Then you had customer centric that came in. You having a couple conversations, you meet with them twice a year, look at the roadmap. Customer primacy for me really means the relationship you're building with those clients. It's not just a one-off. I'm not just reading you the roadmap twice a year. What we actually do is you become interdepartment partners. So often customer centric, who am I talking to? The salespeople, the internal people that want to get things done. What we've created with some of our clients is a relationship where actually product to product speak, customer experience managers to managers speak. And we get in rooms and we sit down together. On top of that, what we do with many of our customers is every 6 to 8 months, we have an executive call. And it's not, what your typical call, like, hey, the renewal is coming. It's what's working, what's not working. Give it to us straight for the next 30 minutes. And hopefully when we get back, we can help solve those issues. And I think that that's the difference in a digital world when you're just walking away, you're taking the sale. Customer primacy is where it's key at this point, the relationship behind it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think probably Amazon coins customer centric, or maybe it was Zappos before, and it was more of a consumer concept where your consumer customers are not so bought in to be meeting with you every single week about your products. But in business, it makes sense. You're an extension of their team in a lot of ways. So having that mindset, are there certain things you need to do to have customers adopt that mindset? We have customers who they're happy to buy the product, but they don't want to be kind of bothered to talk to us, or it takes time out of their day. Is there certain any sort of techniques you've used to help build that relationship with your customers?
Well, and that comes out through to the different organizations within the company, right? So we have CSMs, customer service managers, that advocate for us to get on calls. Because often I will say, I'm often brought on calls when there's a problem. So when I get on there, I'm trying to ease it out, but at the same time, trying to take that conversation to the next level. We do have a great set of executives that work closely with them, and we build relationships. We care about what they're doing. So if something does come in, if we see numbers are down or something's not working, we do get on the phone with them and we build those relationships. A lot of time it's face to face, and then you build that rapport. But if not, it's, sending off an email. It's, hey, this is Carolyn, VP of product. I'm grateful to be working with you guys. I thought we could just have a conversation. And this is why I say it's not weekly. It's 6 to 8 months that we do these types of calls. And at the same time, I'll take the time to say, hey, let's have a vision strategy talk. So we can do that. And then I'll let you know what's going on our side. But it's relationship building 101 across the board. And, I can send sometimes some people, to your point, just like, thank you, I got the product, see you later. And I know when to back off on those ones.
Yeah, you can't build those relationships unless you try. And so that's where it starts. And when you said face to face, are you doing mostly virtual, or are you actually going to their offices and doing sort of sessions like that at all?
I'd say today it's a lot more virtual. I think we've all learned, obviously, over the last 3 years, how to be a little bit more efficient on that. Previously, a lot more face to face. But if there's companies and clients that we have that are in the surrounding area, we'll have lunches, we'll have a meetup, go see them, 100%. And we also we have one client that's pretty close to the office, and we gave them a moment to come and have a talk with our teams to say what they're looking at. So when we can be face to face, really we try to do it. But virtual has been very helpful, and I think everyone's adapted to it anyways now.
I also find it's so rare now that when you do set up something in person with a client, everyone's just shocked at, oh wow, this is so productive, and because it's different than what we've been spending like almost over 3 years now in our little shells here. So it's nice to get out. Awesome. Well, yeah, super interesting conversation. Covered a lot: UX, highly regulated products, customer privacy. So thanks so much for sharing your wisdom, Carolyn.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me.